So there's all of these other aspects of stress that people don't really realize. They think, okay, I just need to do mindfulness and journaling and meditation to lower my stress. But there's these other stressors that are affecting our bodies that we can't do much with our mindfulness. And that is a big piece. I'm not downplaying that at all. So what do you recommend for your clients as far as, okay, we need to break this cycle. We need to get out of this game of yo-yo dieting.
Yeah. So fundamentally, right, we're going to back up and understand, right? When we are burning fat or storing fat, it is connected to our blood sugar. So we are eating now to keep our blood sugar balanced. So what does that look like? Protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. Protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. So protein is clean, lean protein. Eat what you like, don't eat what you don't like, right? Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit. And a meal is actually any time we eat. The only difference between a meal or a snack is how much food we have at a time, and then therefore how long till we need to fuel again. The other thing that we want a couple times a day is quality fat, right? So let's talk serving sizes for a second. Now, I don't live my life with measuring cups in my handbag. I do not count calories. I don't count points. I don't count macros. I don't count all the things because if you're like me and you've been through every diet under the sun, you've also felt a little nutty at times, right? So I live in the land of we're going to figure it out. And we can use our hands as a ballpark. So a serving of protein at a meal is your whole hand, including all the fingers, your whole hand. So for a biologically female body, that's about 4 to 6 ounces. For a male body, that's about 6 to 8 ounces. A serving of protein at a snack is 2 to 3 ounces. So that's the palm or a little less than the palm of the hand, right? So that's our protein. Vegetables are a handful. If it's greens, it's going to be 2 handfuls for one serving. Quality fat is like a tablespoon of an oil, half of the avocado, a small handful of nuts. We don't have to go wild. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is um, the overemphasis on a calorie deficit. Because as you said before, right, it's not the calories are not the issue. It's the quality of the calories. And you don't need a nutrition degree to know that 1,200 calories of carrots versus 1,200 calories of Twix are going to be different in the body,
Yes.
right? So the calorie piece takes care of itself when we start to pay attention to nutrition. So protein, fiber, quality fat. Fiber is your vegetables and fruit. Those are carbohydrates, everybody. So those are the carbohydrates that the body needs every single day. So over the course of the day, we're looking for protein and fiber every time we eat. So meals and snacks, right? Servings of vegetables, 8 to 12 per day. 2 to 3 fats, right? As long as you're having protein every time you eat, 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 ounces at a meal, 2 to 3 at a snack, you're going to get what you need, right? And one of the things that can happen is, when we've tried every diet under the sun, and I say we because I am you, you are me, we have done this, right? I just whacked the mic again. I get excited. When we do this, we outsource all thought and feeling and decision making to the rules. And what happens in that is that we lose our ability to understand what the body is telling us. We become nervous or afraid of a craving. Well, what if a craving is actually just the body talking to us,
Mm-hmm.
telling us what it needs? So, one of the things that we want to do is in this process of shifting our approach to the food that we eat, all of a sudden, we can start to make sense of the cravings. Food decisions go from being emotional to intellectual. to saying, "Oh, I know what I read now. Well, I know what I need right now." Or I know why that cookie is crazy appealing to me and has a voice that is like calling my name right now. And then we're better equipped to handle those situations where right now it feels like you're trying to like white knuckle it,
Mhm.
right? Like we're trying to willpower our way through everything. And so part of this process in shifting what we eat and how we eat to then start to understand how the body communicates with us. What are those cravings telling us? When do those cravings show up? And then we can get to a point where we don't even have to think about it. It's just who we are and what we do. But
Right.
there's an evolution to that. And I think, for me, it's one of my pet peeves in um, intuitive eating because I feel like it's just become another like fad diet. But there's a piece of this where people end up really nervous because we think that if I just give in to every whim of my body, what it's going to want is to eat ice cream and cereal all day, with some toast on the side. And the truth
Right.
is that there's a process. We don't just flip a switch and go from dieting and all the rules that we've been following to, what's become known as intuitive eating. It's really much more about this evolution and this process of starting to take care of the body, to understand, to be on the same team as our body instead of always trying to fight it.
Yeah. The way when my kids are now 18 and older, but when they were younger, I kept them very clean in the house. But with that, I talked through, okay, protein is doing this for you, and these healthy fruits and vegetables are doing this for you, and that sort of thing. But then comes Halloween. Do I say they can't have candy? No, I let them have candy. And then I talk to them on November 1st that morning and I say, "How do you feel this morning?" And because they're mostly clean, they don't feel good. And they are becoming that intuitive self to listening to their bodies talk. Now, if they're eating candy all day long every single day, there's no intuition, right? Their brain's been hijacked.
Ish, right? Like it's not that there isn't intuition. Yes, they have been hijacked. The piece is, the body only has a certain number of ways to talk to us,
Right.
right? There's hunger, thirst, being tired, cravings, right? There's only a handful of ways that it communicates. Pain is another one.
Mhm.
So, what's interesting is, and even going back to what you were mentioning before, there are chemicals built into the candy. There are chemicals
Right.
built into a lot of the ultra processed foods that turn off our brain's ability to know when we're full. But the other thing is when we're eating food that is devoid of nutrition, right? So even think about the digestive process. It starts in the mouth with saliva, right? And then chewing, and then we swallow and we have the whole gut and everything else that happens, right? Digestion. When we see food, when we taste food, we start the digestive process. And the body says, "Oh, good, I'm going to get nutrition." And then what comes is oftentimes, especially if we're eating the standard American diet or following the diets that we've been told, right? Where if all that matters is calories, my snack was or my 100-calorie pack is
Mhm.
just the same as, a cucumber, right? Which we know it's not. But so the body says, "Oh, nutrients are coming." But then it doesn't get anything it knows what to do with. It gets these new to nature molecules and these chemicals, and it says, "This isn't food." And so the body continues to send hunger signals because it needs
Right.
nutrients. So sometimes it's the brain hijacked by chemicals. Sometimes it's the brain hijacked by sugar. And other times it's the body going, "I need something I know what to do with. What I got was nothing I know what to do with." And so we're continuing to get hunger signals because the body is looking for nutrients. So it's a combination of factors, but also to your point, so sweet, salt, and fat are acquired tastes
Mm.
and addictive tastes, but acquired tastes, which means we learn that they taste good. It means that the more we have them, the more we want them. And as an acquired taste, our taste buds adjust. So, you know, the people who start with like one Splenda in their coffee, and then they're at two, and then they're at three, right? It's because the taste buds adjust, and that one Splenda no longer tastes sweet. So, the more we have these things, even the low glycemic sugar sweeteners, right? The low glycemic alternatives can keep us addicted to that taste of sweet, can keep our taste buds in this range where, in order for something to register as sweet, it has to be even sweeter.
Right.
So it's a combination of factors, right? But when we start to peel the layers back, focus on that protein, fiber, quality fat, all of these things start to reveal themselves. And what can happen is, like, so often we're trying to start with eliminating the things that we think are bad, or, as you were saying before, like, start with the thoughts, start with our mind. Well, this is really interesting. So the vagus nerve is the literal connection between the gut and the brain.
Hmm.
I explained it to people. So think of the vagus nerve like a 5-lane highway. 3 of those lanes go gut to brain. 2 lanes go brain to gut. So you will never outthink the biochemistry of the nutrients that you are providing yourself or not. So if it feels like a constant battle, if it feels like you're being told to climb Mount Everest naked and barefoot, and everyone is around you going, "What's wrong with you? Why aren't you climbing?" Right? If we can start with some quality nutrition, those thought processes will get easier and easier. We'll have some clarity that feels right now like it requires all of our will.
And that's, I love that you brought up the word will. It's not a lack of willpower, because we have been, like we're talking about, the food system has been hijacked, and the salt, the sugar, the fats together, it's like a time bomb in the brain, very addictive, and we can't get out of this cycle. Whereas when you peel it back and you rely on whole foods, protein, fiber first with the healthy amounts of fat, your brain calms down and that intuition comes in, and you actually are seeking out food for energy, not food for taste. And I've been the person that, puts the sweetener in in my coffee, and then all of a sudden it's double, and then it's triple. And then, okay, I need to just abstain for it for a week, and then my taste buds are back, and I only need a little bit again. It's amazing what the brain does,
Yeah.
right?
And I think, it's important for everybody to realize, like, we still want food that tastes good. I don't think that the only place for food is sustenance, because let's be real, there isn't a culture in the world that doesn't gather around food, that doesn't mourn with food, that doesn't connect with humans over food, right? So it's about understanding how all of these pieces fit together. And, speaking of longevity, as we were talking about before, one of the key factors in longevity, from all of the blue zones and also what we know in longevity, one of the most overlooked elements is purpose and community.
Hmm.
So there are times, and there is room, and there is space for food that we enjoy, for gathering with food, for building relationships and having community, right? It all works. It's about understanding how the pieces fit together and giving ourselves the capacity to kind of step back, because even with willpower, right? I mean, this is a whole other conversation unto itself. I did an episode called Willpower Won't Power on Salad with a Side of Fries, and we talked about all the physiology of willpower. And in all irony, low blood sugar dramatically diminishes our willpower. So everybody who's trying to eat less and move more, right, drops our blood sugar. Of course you have no willpower. But the truth is that we all have this willpower. We're just using it in other places. We're using it on other things. So it's really about understanding. I think of willpower as like a refillable cup. And so it's about understanding what drinks from that cup and what refills it so that we can replenish that cup and have willpower when we need it.
Right. It is so important to understand that it is not your fault. It is not your fault that you feel stuck. And the modern day toxicity, the food system has just put you in this cycle. And when you get back to your roots, you get back to real whole food, like Jen's talking about, your brain's going to reset and you're going to feel more in control. And I love that you brought up the blood sugar thing and willpower. I will always, whenever I call my husband during the week and he's at work, I'll say, "Have you eaten yet?" And he'll say, "No, I haven't." I said, "Okay, I'll call you back after you eat," because there's no attention span that I'm going to get from him if he hasn't eaten, because he will have that dip after going to the gym and not eating yet.